உள்ளதலதுள்ள உணர் உள்ளதோ உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளலற உள்ளத்தே உள்ளதாம் உள்ளம் எனும் உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளல் எவன் உள்ளத்தே உள்ளபடி உள்ளதே உள்ளல் உணர்வாயே. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have been meditating on the verses of Ulladu Narpadu. We have come upon the heart of the work, says Kanakamal and Pandit Lakshman Sharma sir, that the verses 27, 28, 29 form the heart of the work as they relate to the sadhana, the practice that the work is giving us upadesha. Bhagavan is giving us upadesha. The verses leading up to this 23, 24, 25, 26 may appear important, but even more important is the sadhana verses, because whether you agree with the cause for everything being the ego or not doesn't matter. If you have faith in Bhagavan that his sadhana upadesha is enough for me, then that is enough. So even if we don't understand any of the other parts of the work or do not agree from what we have understood about life with the other parts, the whole of it or some of it, it doesn't matter. If we understand that these three verses are the Upadesham of Bhagavan and I am going to practice it and go wherever they lead me, that is enough. That is the purport of saying that this is the heart of the work. 27, 28 and 29. 27 we have seen நானுதியாதுள்ள நிலை நாமதுவாய் உள்ள நிலை நானுதிக்கும் தானமதை நாடாமல் நானுதியா தன்னிழப்பை சார்வதவன் சாராமல் தான் அதுவாம் தன் நிலையில் நிற்பதவன் சாற்று. So the teacher is asking the student to inquire and tell whether it is possible to abide in the self without destroying the ego. Is it possible to destroy the ego without paying attention to what it is or where from it is arising? As that state where the ego does not arise and therefore has no setting, the worry about setting or worry about freedom is not there as it does not arise at all. That is the state where one is the Ulla Purul, is how the verse begins. We have just taken it from the experiential aspect, that what the sadhana has to be, the sadhana for the sadhaka who feels he is away from truth has to be to see from நானுதிக்கும் தானமதை நாடு நானுதிக்கும் தானமதை நாடாமல் நானுதியா தன்னிழப்பை சார்வதவன், without seeking the place from which the I arises. How to come upon the nanudiya, the ulla nilai? And if one does not destroy the ego and come to that point where nanudiya ulla nilai is there, how one is to abide as nam aduvam ulla nilai? It is not possible, says Bhagavan. So begin with by attending to who am I or whence am I. And in this verse Bhagavan is going to take us to whence am I? To the bhakti of the self. That the self is the deepest point in our inner journey. And at that point, the difference between inner and outer drops. But one has to make this inner journey, says Bhagavan. How does it go? Elumbum ahandai, elumidattai, நீரில் விழுந்த பொருள் காண வேண்டி முழுகுதல் போல் கூர்ந்த மதியால் பேச்சு மூச்சடக்கி கொண்டுள்ளே ஆழ்ந்து அறிய வேண்டும் அறி. That is this verse. எழும்பும் அகந்தை. So the lead in from the previous verses, in the previous verse Bhagavan says, without seeking the place from where the I arises or what the I is, there is no way one can come upon the destruction of the ego, which leads to nanudiyadulladile. And without destroying the ego, one cannot come upon namaduvai ullanile. So now the sadhana is now what are required in the sadhana to seek from where the I thought arises is being delineated, says Lakshman Sharma. What is being delineated? What are the energies required or the energy required in tapas to see that point from where the I arises. So here Bhagavan says, Elumbum ahandai, elumidattai நீரில் விழுந்த பொருள் காண வேண்டி முழுகுதல் போல். So if an object, typically a valuable object, has fallen deep inside the well, or in Who Am I, Bhagavan gives the example of those who dive the deep seas, not so deep perhaps, but deep enough that they will tie stones around their hips so that they can sink in fast and search for the pearls that are there and bring them up, the gems that are there and bring them up. So those are the two examples that are there. That is, one is in any water body which has some kind of depth, something has fallen into it, something valuable. Let us say the cell phone has fallen into the swimming pool. So how one would dive immediately deep into the deep end of the pool where it has fallen and try to get it? That is the upamana, that is the example given by Bhagavan. Elumbum ahandai, elumidattai, that ego which is arising to seek for the place or the source from which it is arising. So first of all, this is called as bhakti marga, that the ego is considered apart from the source from which it is arising. The Who Am I is called as jnana marga or ananya bhakti. The ananya bhakti we see in Prahalada. The ananya bhakti is what we see in Prahalada. When Prahalada goes through all those torments, he holds on to Hari. We come to the last parts of his the spiritual journey of Prahalada and Hiranyakashipu together, how they make it. The question that Hiranyakashipu asks Prahalada is, you say Hari, Hari, and you are not giving respect to your human father. I am appearing right in front of you. I don't know where your Hari is, but you are saying Hari, Hari. Can you show him to me? Have you seen him? Where he is? Where is Hari? And Bhagavan here is saying the Hari is in the place where from the I arises. And since the I is everything, in the preceding verse, Ahandaye Yavuma, in the 26th verse, in the concluding verse of problem definition, 23, 24, 25, 26, the 26th verse is problem definition in the ultimate manner. Bhagavan says, Karuvam Ahandai Undayin Anaitum Undam. Ahandai Indrel Indranaitum. Ahandaye Yavuma. Therefore, if somebody is the source of that which is everything, then that source is the everything. So that is what Prahalada says, that Hari is everywhere. I can see him at the source of my ego, and my ego only is manifest as all this. Therefore, Hari is everywhere. What is Hari is in me? He asks Hiranyakashipu. Of course. It's difficult to find what is inside me, but you mean to say Hari is in this pillar. And Prahlada goes and says that he is omnipresent. He is present in every atom. And that is where Hiranyakashipu gets defeated, that nothing can come and touch Ananya Bhakti. Where the omnipresence of God is held, no kind of penance or tapas for anything that can be God can supersede the omnipresence of God. Now he had, of course, got a vara, a boon, that he had posited many of the dualities, that in neither he should be killed, neither outside the house nor inside the house, neither during the day nor at night, neither by a human being nor by a beast. None of these, all these possibilities, he has very well thought out with his fine intellect, and he has got them as vara with penance, great penance. We will be seeing how that diving deep is the penance everybody does. From Nundi the monkey to everybody, that diving to the source of the I is the penance that we all do. But what is this Ananya Bhakti, the who am I, is that it cannot be defeated by any other vara, because all boons are in the Triputi, are still positing the ego to enjoy the vara. Therefore the Triputi is there. Whereas in Ananya Bhakti, in the who am I, the Triputi is not there. The I itself is taken to be the source from which everything arises. So whenever a thought comes, all one has to do is ask, for whom is this thought? For me. Who am I? Just hold the I. Keep holding the I. Because I cannot be apart from the Supreme. Is there any way the ego can be apart from the Supreme? Therefore, whenever anything apart is seen, leave the apart and hold the I. That's all. The self and the non-self situation is the falsity. So leave the falsity, the non-self, and put the attention, take it back to the self and keep it there. But coming to this verse, this is reintroducing the Bhakti Bhavana, that the source is apart from me, that I have to dive deep to get to the source. So the Jiva is different and the source, the Paramatma, is different, and the Paramatma is deep in the subconscious. In the subconscious, I have to make this journey and dive deep and find him. Elumbum Ahandai. So it is presumed that the ego rises. The stillness of the ego is not posited as its real state. For the sadhana purposes, it is assumed that the ego rises out of the self, finally only to dissolve and the self alone to be there. But for this sadhana, there is the Bhakti Bhavana. This is what Bhagavan says to Gambiram Seshayar. In fact, Bhakti of the self is preceding in Bhagavan than the Jnanam. Because the instructions to Gambiram Seshayar precede the instructions to Sivaprakash Pillai in chronology. And they contain the Bhakti Bhavana, where Bhagavan says, you will find the self. As you seek from where the eye arises, there you will find a Spurana, that is Akanda. Now hold this Spurana and keep quiet. When you dive deep, something will rise, hold that. So all this is the Anya Bhavana is there. And Bhagavan begins with that. In fact, Bhagavan begins with the Upadesham to Amma, that the ordainer controls the destiny of all beings. But then to Gambiram Seshayar, how to hold the self in the inward journey is what is taught. And through Sivaprakash Pillai, Bhagavan teaches the universal Jnana Marga, which can be practiced by anybody, any jiva, as all Bhagavan is asking is to not to believe that there is a Paramatma apart from me, dive deep in and all that. Just that you exist. Nobody doubts that. You let go of that which is not you and just hold on to your existence. So that is the Jnana Marga that comes later. But it is quite important to understand that without understanding Bhakti, the Jnana is not complete. It is incomplete. In fact, the Rajagopalachari in his commentary, in his preface to the Bhajagovindam says, such a Jnana, which is not understanding the Bhakti, is useless tinsel, he says. It is useless tinsel, the tinsel town, where they put that silver-like thing and make a big celebration out of it. It will be like that, it will be wafery thin, he says. But then back to the verse, that this is a Bhakti of the Atman is very clear. Elumbum ahandai, elumidatte. So that idam is apart from the ego, and ego has to make a diving deep. Now then what is that place called? Elumbum ahandai, elumbum idam. What is that idam called? That idam is called as heart by Bhagavan. So for this sadhana, we can say that the ego is diving deep to find its own source, which is the heart. But then the heart is posited as a place only to absorb itself into the self. All places and all times will get absorbed in the thought-free consciousness. But for the journey, for the inward journey, that idam is posited. Elumbum ahandai elum idam. There is a idam or place from which the ego arises. That is called as heart by Bhagavan. So it is also called as Hridaya Vidya. The Vidya here is Hridaya Vidya. We will see this in many of the places in Bhagavan's teachings. Whenever we come across Hridaya Vidya, we should be clear that Bhagavan is only talking of the ego diving deep and finding from where, what is the place from where I have arisen. That is the Hridaya Vidya. Elumbum ahandai elumidatte. Up to that we have seen. Neeril vizhunda porul kaana vendi mulugudal pol. Now there is an incident in Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and Bhagavan talks about that in the talks about the Vairagyam. One of the devotees or disciples of Paramahamsa is said to have asked him, can you show me God and why I am not able to see? I am your devotee and disciple. Why am I not able to see God? Then Paramahamsa is said to have led him to the river nearby, and when he is most unprepared, just hold him by the neck and thrust his face into the water. And in a few moments, no wonder, the unprepared one is now struggling for breath and pushing Paramahamsa's strength, and Paramahamsa doesn't hold. And with that great power of the seeking of breath, He comes out and what are you doing? And Paramahamsa says, are you seeking the self with the same intensity, with the same sincerity? Is the question which Paramahamsa seems to have asked of the Sishya. And that is the intensity Bhagavan is asking of us here. Pech, mooch, adakki, kondulle is going to come. But even to dive deep into the water, especially when we take the example of the diving by the pearl divers, it is said to be very, very risky. And Vairagya is akin to the stones they have tied there in the hips. The stones help them sink in very fast, go to the place where they want, and then to come back, of course, they cut off those, they drop those stones and come back with the gems. But the Vairagyam is to be like that as we would search for that breath when held forcibly into water like that, to that extent, one should have the Vairagyam to dive deep into the source of the Ahankara. That Bhagavan tells specifically in some places in the talks, that what is it that is required of us? It is not, we should not think that it is this is the simple journey I am going to make. That it is a cakewalk. It is only who am I that I have to do. When thought comes, I have to let go, hold the, for whom is this thought, who am I? No. To go in, as we go in, the Vairagya has to be very, very strong. Because what will be the challenges? There will be many challenges, because as we go dive deeper and deeper, there are going to be enticements, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be achievements, which will make us feel, why not go to the surface and enjoy this gem for some time. Bhagavan says, don't do that. Dive deeper till you find the source of the ego. Don't get satisfied with any other thing you find in between. In the diving deep, when you find other things, you should have the Vairagya, though they will appear so enticing. That Vairagya should be strong, that you have to dive deep. That Porul Kana Vendi, you are going deep to find that lost ring into the well. In between, something you see on the side of the wall of the well, something you see as here very glittery. Don't look at all that it is. That ring, that diamond ring which has fallen in, that is the only lakshya, the source of the why we are diving deep, not for getting this or getting that. We will see in Joseph Campbell's talk about or the coverage about the teachings of Carl Jung. He calls it as a hero with 1,000 faces. The journey that Jung posits into the subconscious, the diving deep which we are going to see in Bhagavan. In Jung, it is posited as a journey of the hero. That typically the journey of the hero starts with a challenge, a crisis. He has to start thinking the outer solutions are not enough. He gets some support from outside. He starts diving deeper in and certain new things come out. He finds and he applies them there. He gets a true mentor. He gets teachings. He goes down further. Then he gets transformations. There are many deaths that occur and many rebirths that occur, resurrections that occur inside. Now, at any one of those death and recurrence, resurrection, you may feel like surfacing and enjoying it. And that is covered in that journey of Campbell by saying that these cycles go on. Like you will come out and you will be a hero at that point. How is this, this kind of hero thing that comes, you may ask me. When Murali and I, we were talking about 6-7 years back, he is also a practitioner of Bhagavan's teachings and he has come through the journey in Gayatri Japa. So he mentioned to me one day, see sir, now I am seeing these serials along with mother a little bit. on the TV. Now I understand how they go about writing these serials. That it is the knack of it or the root of it I am able to make out. Then I said, these are the points where we will have to sink in further. For whom is this knowledge about the knack of writing those serials, the knack of handling people, the knack of this or the knack of that, we will get when we go deep into the self. But what Bhagavan's teachings does, it does not allow us to loiter in any of those levels, in any of those gems. So Bhagavan says, Elumbum Ahande Elumidatte Neeril Virinda Porul Kana Vendi Mulgudal Pol. That Porul alone should be your Lakshya. That source of the ego alone should be your goal. You should not divert yourself to become a hero once again in the world view. You might have started off with a small problem, and that problem might have got resolved. As soon as it is resolved, you will be hailed by the friends in that circle, and you may feel like enjoying that time. But in Bhagavan's teachings, there is no such taking off into some relative heroship and then get back into a new crisis, then go into a new mentor, go into that cycle, go that repeated cycles again and again. Once you have come to Bhagavan, you have come to the ultimate mentor. And Bhagavan says the ultimate search, the ultimate dhiratva, the courage, the heroism is to go to the source of the ahankara, which is the source of everything. Not to get this gem or that gem, but to the source of all this, which is the source of the ego. Elumbum mahande, elumidatte, neeril virinda porul kana vendi mulugudal pol. So what have we got? We have got that there is a place from which everything arises, not only ego. In 26 it was said, Ahande undayin anaitum undahum. Ahandaye yavamam. Everything is, so you are going to the source of everything. How to go is the next line. Elumbum mahande elumidatte neeril virinda porul kana vendi mulugudal pol koornda madiyal. The consciousness or the intellect or the mind with which you go cannot be the sensory instrument, cannot be the kriyas of the breath, cannot be the mental knowledge that you have gathered, but it should leave all this. That is where the diving deep comes. The diving deep is Kurdamadi. When am I having the Kurdamadi asked by Bhagavan? Kurdamadiyal, says Bhagavan. What is this Kurdamadi? Obviously, it is not the eyes which can see only 20 feet or less if there is a wall there. So, it obviously cannot be this eye. It cannot be the perception of the other senses. So, in our diving deep, we should understand the Vairagya includes the melting of all these senses in that ocean of subconsciousness. See, there is this example of, in the talk 2 or 3, where the journey is akin to a salt doll covered with a waterproof coat trying to measure the depth of the ocean. Bhagavan says the waterproof coat is the kosha, the I am the body idea, and the I am the body idea is going to be dissolved as we go in the subconscious. Whatever the problem may be, all those problems will also get dissolved. In our inner journey, as we go deeper and deeper, not only is the I going to dissolve, because ahandai undayin anaitum undahum, everything is going to get dissolved in that ocean. Now, that is the journey we are making. So, the Vairagya, not to get carried away by any object, is required. That Kurdamadi is required for that. That Kurdamadi, how does it become Kurdamadi? By not following any object of the senses, any Kriya of the breath, the Pancha Pranas, any of the objective knowledge that we have, any of the cause-effect reasons that we have, or the good-bad reasonings that we have, thoughts should go and reasoning should disappear for the I to arise, says Bhagavan in one of the talks, that there is no way you can have Kurdamadi still going after thoughts, still having the reasoning, juggling around with this cause, that effect, and all that. All that has to be left for Kurda Madhyal. Pechu Muchadaki Kundulle. Here, Pechu, Kanakamal and Lakshman Sharma say that Pechu includes all the mental activities and Muchu includes all the sensory activities. Sensory activities also have to be including the seeing. Though in the water example, your eyes can be opened. In the subconscious, these eyes are of no use. You cannot feel the spurana with these eyes or perceiving of objects. One has to let go of that. The Purnamadi all pechu muchadaki kondu. What does that mean? In the water example, it comes obviously you cannot speak in the water, you cannot breathe in the water. So the pranayama is mentioned here. Now, is it the niyama, the pranayama of control, that is six times Gayatri for inward, then holding for 9 Gayatris, then let go of 6 Gayatris? No. Bhagavan says that as soon as you go for Kurda Madhi, as soon as you stop going after the thoughts which are gross as Annamaya Kosha, gross in subtler, slightly subtler in Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Kosha. When you drop those thoughts, the Mucha is automatically Sahaja Kumbhaka, it comes. Sahaja Kumbhaka is the retention or the inwardness of the breath is automatic. One can take that the minimal upkeep of breath for the maintenance of the body, as in deep sleep, is what comes automatically when we start diving deep. That is, Mucha is automatically subsiding or becoming naturally quiet when we start diving deep. Pechi Muchadaki Kundu Ulle, the journey is within, not outside. We have seen from Carl Sagan that the outside is the three-dimensional world. Some may say, including time, there is a fourth dimension. Doesn't really matter. All higher dimensions are inside only. And the highest dimension, which is beyond all dimensions, the Atman, has to be found inside only. It cannot be in the outside area. Kurda Madhyal Pechi Muchadaki Kondulle. Now, when we go in the diving deep, I said that there may be enticements which Carl Jung says it is there, and Campbell, his Shishya, brings out as the journey of the hero. The hero makes many times he comes out and claims credit for what he has found, and he is a transformed person. In fact, we see that in the Vedantic stories, there is the story of the great sadhaka who wants to see the light of the self or the darshana of God. And there is an Ashariri voice after great tapas. The Ashariri voice says, no, in this janma, you don't have that. It is not written. Then he gets completely dejected with this one, and he says, what is left for me? Let me not ask for anything. Let me not even ask for darshan, and let me keep quiet. And in that silence, suddenly God gives darshana. And the sadhaka asks, the great Vishi asks, how come you have given darshana now? And the God says, this is no more your previous janma. You have taken rebirth. Once you have let go of that akanksha completely, that desire completely, and you have dived deep, you have taken rebirth. So the birth and rebirth, the death and rebirth, we will find many times happening in our inner journey. The transformation are the birth and the death and the rebirth. That one is getting transformed, but one should not take any of those credits and come back to find oneself in the Campbellian journey. But one should go for the source of the ego itself, where one comes to the self, which of course is the goal that Carl Jung also proposes. But they have this journey, the journey of cyclical finding of a mentor, transformation, and return. You return to the world, you have something to offer to the world, and then maybe a new crisis starts your new cycle. But that is not the journey that Bhagavan is asking us to do. Bhagavan is saying that one should go to the source of the ego. Elumbum mahande, elumidatte, நீரில் விழுந்த பொருள் காண வேண்டி முழுகுதல் போல் கூர்ந்த மதியால் பேச்சு மூச்சடக்கி கொண்டு உள்ளே we have seen it has to be necessarily found inside, because all the higher dimensions are inside, but the care should be taken not to laterally go into any of those planes. What do I mean by that? It is said in the Taittiriya Upanishad, they say that there are 14 lokas, 14 planes from this plane to the Brahma Loka. There are 14 different planes, and it is not all Mukti Lokas. There are many lokas in between, like someone who takes to the finding out of what happens in Pitru Loka. When people die with their karmic balance or with their vasanas in place and the journey has not been completed, where do they go? How is that journey made? How can we make that journey better? Then they find the mantras which are related to that, and they have a role of playing that. They are heroes who get transformed from their this worldly life to find out about that worldly life and come back and deliver something which the other people don't have. They don't have knowledge of that journey. They will tell you, you will be traveling through these waters, there this particular thing will come, there you will have to do this dana and all those things. So that is the lateral journey which Bhagavan asks us not to engage in, like not go into the set of thoughts which will reveal about that plane. For instance, Murali sir was wanting to, perhaps just in that moment, then he could easily drop it and not proceed at all. That the art of how all these dramas are written, just sit down, put the central thing, then build it around. That art could be a world in itself. And Bhagavan says, don't loiter there. You ask, for whom is that world? Go to that ahankara and the source of the ahankara, not what the ahankara can hold as an object. So don't go into any of those lateral worlds which are ranked as the Gandharva Loka, Deva Gandharva Loka. All those things are there in Taittiriya Upanishad. But Bhagavan doesn't encourage any of that. And in the talks we will find, whenever somebody asks about returning as a hero with new information, or what will happen to me in my next janma, Bhagavan will say, see, if you are born now, that means எழும்பும் மகந்தே எழுமிடத்தை தேடு நாடு. எழும்பும் மகதே எதை கொடுக்குமோ அதை நாடாத. What the ahande can give, don't go after that, but see from where the ahande arises. கூர்மதியால் பேச்சு மூச்சடக்கி கொண்டு உள்ளே ஆழ்ந்து அறிய வேண்டும். Ari, ஆழ்ந்து அறிய வேண்டும். The final state is one of pure knowledge. The knowledge itself is being. All the doings, the area of doings in the Triputi of doings, they get far dissolved in the early parts of our diving deep itself. So no answers are looked for in the diving deep, in the area of doing. From point A to point B, if I am taken by doing, that involves time, and in some future place I am going to get what I want. It already implies that God is not present here, which is what Prahlad denies. Prahlad says God is present here and now. He is omnipresent. So any doing implies that I am going to find God or the real happiness at some other time, and He is not present here. When I am uncomfortable or unsatisfied, discontented with the present state, with the present moment, that means I am positing that God is not here. The real happiness is not here. And that is not what Bhagavan is teaching us. The source of the ego, where else is it present? It is present here. In fact, here and now are present in that source, the source from where the I arises. So, ஆழ்ந்து அறிய வேண்டும் அறி. The depth, we should go into the depth, and there the ego also gets dissolved. The I, which is nothing but an accumulation of all these contents, as you go into the deep sea, of consciousness, all those contents get dismantled and get merged one by one into the consciousness. In this journey, we can say one by one because it is Kramadhyana. We are saying from where the I is arising, I am going to seek. So it is not like the vichara of who am I. It is whence am I, and therefore it can be posited that I do find myself somewhere, but then I should not stop there. I should dive deeper. Now, how do I know that that is also not a lateral plane? Like they say, there is a Brahma Loka. And that clarity, because inside journey is all made in the consciousness. We don't go actually to the world. Like we may get a thought of our Pitrus, our ancestors. Now, the father may not be there. He might have passed on in 82. There may be a thought of the father. But who is the real father and mother? Who is the real father and mother? The real mother is this Purana, the Chit Shakti. The Ramana Chit Shakti is the real mother. So, when we hold that mother and keep quiet, Bhagavan says to Gambiram Seshayar, hold that mother, don't ask her anything. Don't ask the creatrix anything. Just hold her and keep quiet. She will lead us to the self. The Amma will lead us to the Shiva. The quietness, like the fire lit on camphor, when you don't ask her of anything, then she will completely rid of you of the I am the body idea, and she will herself become the Ardhangi in Shiva. That she will become absorbed in Shiva. Achalane ayinum achabaitanil achalayamammai ediradu. Achala uruvilachakki odungida ongum arunachalam endrari. Now that creatrix is present as this Purana at the end of the subconscious. When the thoughts stop appearing, ahaminashabhaji aham taya spurati hrutsvayam paramapurna. When you dive deep in, then that planular feeling that I may go off into a plane is completely absorbed, because as Ganapati Muni says, Jagad aham para spurati metrayam. All the three, the Jagat, the entire plane, aham, the ego, and the Param, and the Ishvara, all the three shine together as I. So that itself is the Puram, that itself is the Aham, that itself is everything. This Purana itself. Till then, don't stop the inward diving. Till then, the Aham's root has not been reached. One has to, with the Kurna Madhyal, Pechu Muchadaki, Kondulle, Arnd Ariya Vendum. In Ariya Vendum, I have jumped one or two verses, but since we have covered it once and we are coming the second time, I hope I am allowed that privilege, that the creatrix, the real Amma, when we think of the Pitru who has passed away, that is not the real father. He may also need where he has to come. If at all he has to come to the source only. So better to go there and wait, is it not? Better to go where everybody has to come and be there. What is the best contribution one can make to the friends? Wherever everybody has to go and finally find, go there and be there. Be there as that. What better thing can we do? And that's what Bhagavan says. The self-realization is the best help that is possible. If at all anything is to be helped, self-realization is the best help possible, because the real father and real mother are there. The mother whose umbilical cord you can feel here, she is this Purana. She is the Chit Shakti there. And she will be waiting to receive us. And Bhagavan says, just hold her and keep quiet. And the Shiva who appears aloof, like the gents whose children they are freed of, they just roam around, they don't have that much care like mothers. It appears like that. But that Shiva who seems to be aloof will be revealed to us by that creatrix when we hold her and keep quiet. This is Father. Let us both abide in Him. Let us be quiet. Like that, like fire lit on camphor, the Amma, this Purana, the Chit Shakti also will quieten down, says Bhagavan. Till then, one should keep diving deep to that source where our real mother and real father are waiting and they are ever present. Towards that Chit Shakti, we should dive till all the differences are absorbed by Amma. Only she is there. And when we don't ask anything from her, because everything is she. Yavumagi nindrai kali engume niraindai. She is that one who is everything, and she is the one who has permeated everything. Now, what more can you ask of her? She has given you everything. When she reveals herself as this Purana Shakti, she has given everything to the child. What more can we ask except be absorbed in that? And Bhagavan says, that place where she asks for and gets half of Shiva and merges in him so that she is never ever having to come feel that she is outside of Shiva. That place is where she takes us and merges us there. And we can use this language of bhakti totally in this verse because we are diving from where we are to where we actually should be. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit and practice till 8 o'clock. Namo Ramana. Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Ramana, sir. Namo Ramana. Prostration to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self, manifest as Ramana, we are meditating on the verses of Ulladu Narpadu, and as Nanda Kumarji brought out to us with the equal simplicity which is there in the verse itself, and how it is connected with the previous verse, where Bhagavan gives us the state to be attained, and here he is giving us the method, having told us that நான் உதியாதுள்ள நிலை is the state to be attained. Sadhu Om Swami in his song says, நானே எழாது ரமணேசன் எழுந்தே செய்யும் நர்த்தனம் காணும் நாம் அதுவாய் உள்ள நிலை. So that is the state where there is no ego at all. But the bridge, what is the bridge between a state where we feel that there is the presence of an entity, a separate individual entity, and to remain as that itself. So where is the bridge between the two? We have found in the earlier verse, Bhagavan told us about the Chit Jada Granthi. He told us that the ego is the knot, the bridge between the self and the body. So here he is saying the bridge or the connection, the ego, has to be shifted or turned back to its source by diving within. Because Sadhu Om Swami also says in his Dhyana Patti, which we recall, the line which we recall quite frequently, இங்கு கண்ட பிறகுதான் இருப்பதெல்லாம் அவன்மயம். Only when we discover the self within ourselves, within, do we recognize that everything is that. If I say everything is the self without having experienced the self within me, then that would be a mental perception. Still, it would be a mental perception. So, Bhagavan is asking us to dive here, dive within. Inward is the path, says Bhagavan. உள்ளே ஆழ்ந்தறிய வேண்டும். We have to go inward. And what is this inward? In earlier context, Nandakumarji has also explained to us how, if we look at the world, and if we look at the one who sees the world, or the eyes which see the world, the eyes are inner to the world outside. Then if we see, how is this eye seeing? It is having something called sight. So sight is inner to the eye, the physical eye. And what is it that recognizes that which is seen? That is the mind. So the mind is inner to the sight in our eyes. So the recognition in the mind, what is that recognition? Say if I'm seeing something, I see. So the eye which sees is inner to that which is seen. The sight in my eyes, the capacity to see, is inner to the physical eye. The thought that I am seeing is inner to the capacity to see, and I am inner to the thought that I am seeing. So, ulle aandari, one has to go within. And what is at the innermost point of this out to in is the I thought, And then Bhagavan says, from there, the I thought has to be taken back to its source. So he is not asking us to go through this other rest of the journey. As Nanda Kumarji said, there is a possibility that we can get caught anywhere in this external journey, this what he called the lateral experiences, because we have heard of many sadhanas which take one to different lokas. There is the loka of sound, there is a loka of light, there are beautiful experiences. And Murugan Swami says, Ramanane Kachi Parpala Kattinai Manakannule. You have shown me many, many visions in my mind's eye. So, what am I to do with all these visions? None of them. See, if one is, as Bhagavan says, if one is focused only on the source, if one is holding one's breath also and is intent only on that, then I am sure for the diver into the deep sea or into the well, or if you look at the deep sea, he has tied a rock, he has he has gone right to the bottom. So even when going, even though he may be going fast because of the rock, I'm sure there may be many beautiful sights in the underwater world, because many tourists also are taken to see sights in the underwater worlds through different tourism tourist attractions are there, where you can go under the water and you can see the water world, you can see the fish, you can hear the sounds over there. That's a world in itself. But this deep sea diver, the one who dives into the well, is not at all worried about what else is happening over there, and he or she is only worried about reaching the source. And having reached the source, then this diver is again not worried about what else is there around him, because his next he has been holding his breath. So having found the pearl, having found the gem, he will surface immediately. He is not going to be worried about what else is going happening around over there. So Bhagavan says this is the intensity which is required. And Bhagavan is giving us this because he has experienced this as a boy of 16. He has dived within, holding his breath, he has dived within. Pechu Muchu. He says, when describing his experience of death, the enactment of death, as we call it, which is actually the intense practice of self inquiry. In that, he says, I held my breath. Of course, he stretched his body, but that is not what is required of us. Bhagavan says that part you can leave out, but you have to hold your breath. So the breath is held, and what happened? He says, I did not utter any sound. Describing that experience, Bhagavan says, I did not utter any sound within myself. I did not speak within myself. I did not say anything to myself. Although he says, I asked myself, now that this body is dead, it will be cremated and all that. But initially, he says, I did not say anything to myself. I did not even utter the sound I. Though Bhagavan has given us again, Bhagavan has given us the I itself as a mantra to reach that source. Here he is saying Pech Mooch Adaki. So nothing is relied upon. There is no dependence on anything other than the self. So that is the point where this can happen, this process can happen just by the pure intensity to go inward. The peche and the mooch will automatically get controlled just by the keenness to go inward. So here Bhagavan is saying, Kurnamadiyal, by a sharp intellect. In Arunachala Pancharatnam, Bhagavan says Amalamadhi. He says by the Amalamadhi, you have to turn inwards. Ahamiti kuta ayati tyanvishanta pravishtaya Ati Amaladhiya. Ati Amaladhi. That is a very, very pure. And what is pure? Pure is that which has no other elements mixed with it. So, what is this pure mind? This pure mind is the I unmixed with any other thoughts, with any other object, with anything other than that pure. That's just that I sense. Now, Bhagavan Nanda Kumarji, he told us how the I aham spurana, that pure, that sharp attention, with that one has to turn within, to turn to the deepest point, that is the innermost point, which is beyond even this I thought. With that pure I thought, bereft of all other thoughts, bereft of attention on breath, bereft of attention on speech, one has to turn within with that great love for that self. Great love. Because what is it, as again, as Nanda Kumarji said, it is some precious object which has fallen into the well. Some precious object is to be found. Otherwise, who will risk his or her own life? Who will be prepared to tie a rock and enter into the ocean? Unless that which is to be found there is so much precious, so precious, even more precious than one's own life. That's why one is ready to dive in and search for that object, so that it has to be so precious. When that is so precious, then other things will not disturb us. The other things will not rise. Automatically, the other thoughts will not rise. It can work in the inverse also. Automatically, when in Bhagwan's case, he says, the fear of death drove my mind inward. It could be fear, it could be anxiety, or it could be just pure love for the truth, because that alone is meaningful. Again, as Nanda Kumarji referred also to the episode of Nachiketas, where he says, what is the big deal in paying attention to anything else or in acquiring anything else whatsoever? Because at the end of the period of enjoying that acquisition, O Yama, O Lord of Death, I have to come back to your doorstep. Everything will end. Again, Sadhu Om Swami says, in another of his compositions, he says that everything that is enjoyed has to come to an end. And when it comes to an end, it leaves us only with sorrow. So it is better to get back to the source. Of course, in that song, he talks about the surrender with which Nanda Kumarji started this uh, today's explanation, the glory, the beauty of surrender. But surrender for us, he also explained, it's a partial surrender. So it is a repetitive cycle again and again. It has to happen again and again. And in Arunachala Padigam, Bhagavan says, Paramane pirindu iவ்வுலகினை தலையில் பற்றி யான் பெற்றது போதும். Podum. Enough. I have had enough of carrying this world upon my head. Where? In my thoughts. Carrying this world upon my head, separated from you. Pirindu. Paramanir pirindu. Having got separated from you. So I want to get back to you. Enough of carrying this burden. And let me throw this burden to you. How do I throw this burden to you? By finding out the source. And again, another point which Nanda Kumarji brought to our attention today was that Bhagavan gives the Vensamai first. In Upadesha Saram also, we find ahamiti kuta ayati iti anvishyanta, that ahamayam kuto bhavati chinvataha aipatatyaham nijavicharanam, that comes. And then in a later verse, Bhagavan says, Kim Swarupam iti Atmadarshane Avyaya Abhava Apurna Chit Sukham. So here Bhagavan is giving us the source. Now, turning to the source means that it is called bhakti because it requires faith in the presence of the self. It requires faith in the fact that this presence is available to us, and everything is rising from this, as Bhagavan explains in the chapter on the Hridaya Vidya in Ramana Gita. In detail, he explains how everything rises. He says, from the heart source, the energy, the consciousness comes to the eye or the sahasrara. From there to the whole world, the body, and therefore one becomes a samsari. One gets caught in the world. But by giving us this process, Bhagavan is here telling us the reverse process. From the thoughts, which are the world, to the thinker, from the thinker to the source of the thinker. But the thrust in this verse, there are two aspects as again brought out by Nanda Kumarji very beautifully. One is the process itself of holding the eye, getting back to the source. The other is the intensity, the love, the bhakti for the source. That alone can give us the power to turn back, and for that only, every moment of practice is actually to build the faith that there is nothing else which is of any worth. There's nothing else that is meaningful in any case. Self alone is worth it. There is nothing else that is worth it. And having attained the self, everything will be attained, but then still it will not be of any special significance. Because supposing somebody is making an experiment in school and gets a Nobel Prize for that experiment, after that, even if that child gets the first rank in PUC or in his whichever class he is in, it would be not of great significance compared to the Nobel Prize. This is just a mundane example which is being given. The glory of the self cannot be imagined, but Bhagavan tells us, ஒரு குடை நீள கோவை, he says, in Raham Puram, there is no problem, there is no duality, there is no worry, there is no anxiety, there is no fear, there is no rising of desire. You are the emperor of the entire universe. Come, come. That's what he says in the Ashtakam. And here he says, yes, get back to the self, drop everything, love that, go inward, go into the depth. That the depth is not a physical depth, it is a depth of subtlety. It's a depth of subtlety, and that was also a point which was brought out to us. It's subtler and subtler and subtler, and we move from the gross to the subtle. That is the inward process. The inwardness is moving from the gross to the subtle till the subtlest, the eye is held, and when we can go no further down, and then one recognizes that this has to have another power, and that is the recognition of the source, and one would automatically be taken to the source. There the grace takes over, the self takes over. It's on our part, we have to make the effort, and the self would, as often told to us by Nandamaji, would rise up and embrace this one who is searching for it. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramanaka, Namo Ramanaka to all. Thank you.
ನಮೋ ರಮಣ ಸರ್, ನಮೋ ರಮಣ ಅಕ್ಕ.
ನಮೋ
Ramananjali, Ramananjali, Ramananjali.